about lithium batteries. We're going to be specifically focusing on the marine side of lithium because that's what we deal with here the most at Tiny Boat Nation. We're going to reveal some of the stuff that the lithium battery industry just doesn't want to talk about or doesn't want to inform you of so that you can make a better buying decision. And that's kind of our goal here, is to help people out with making a good decision when buying a lithium battery for their boat. So if you're new here, my name is Chris. I work here at our Tiny Boat Nation store in Georgia, and I do lithium battery repair for a lot of different companies and electric outboard companies. My specialty. We've got our lovely Mike Lopez over here tonight. He's got probably more experience with lithium batteries than any of us. Mike, do you remember when you saw your first lithium battery?
Yep, I did. Yeah.
You do? When was it?
The Dakota Lithium. When that thing broke the market and had that mass advertising, and everybody on that bandwagon.
When was that?
Dude, like, I don't know, man.
I know it's been a while.
Pre-2020.
Yeah.
Like 2017, 2018. Something like that. They started getting big. It's never I did that.
It's really taking off.
I swear they've been around since 2015, 2016. They didn't really start taking off until 2017 or 2018. And then it's been about, we're approaching on 10 years of them really kind of being a thing.
Yeah. So I think the best thing to do is to get started is just kind of give you a brief overview of what a lithium battery is and the parts and pieces and what you really need to know before you get into going and doing your research and figuring out what it is that you want to buy and what's going to work best for your particular scenario. So
and then
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And then you guys, we're going to obviously be doing a comparison of them versus lead acid or AGM batteries. So if you guys have questions about those batteries, obviously there's 3 in the market and why you may or may not want lithium over for one specific scenario. And we're also talking about different voltages, 12, 16, and so on. Ask those questions so we can answer them.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're watching live, feel free to drop any questions in. Let us know where you're listening from tonight. If you're watching this on a replay on YouTube or Facebook or anything, you feel free to comment. We'll try to get to them on our next live. So lithium batteries have a few really, really important parts. The first and most important one is figuring out which lithium battery chemistry you want. So lithium is not just lithium. There's a bunch of different versions of it. The most common in the marine industry is what they call LPF4 or Life PO4, which is a lithium iron phosphate. There's a lot of other chemistries that are out there, but as of right now, the industry standard is kind of the lithium iron phosphate or the LP4 battery. It's considered to me the most safe. It's kind of a compromise between some of the other chemistries as far as weight goes. There are some that are a little bit lighter. There's some that are a little bit more powerful, but they all kind of have their different drawbacks, and some of them just haven't been used for a long time to really know how they're going to hold up. Another one that's really popular is a mixture of lithium, cobalt, manganese, and oxide. Some of them even throw in some aluminum, just depending on the cell. Those are kind of the new up and coming cells. They're just a little bit lighter than your LP4 or your Life PO4 cell. I don't really see anything negative about them yet, but they just haven't been out for as many years as LP4 or Life PO4 batteries. So every battery that you purchase is going to have multiple cells inside of it, depending on which voltage you get, whether that be a 12 volt, 16, 24, 36, 48, and all the way up to 96 and 144 volts for your big electric outboards. The number of cells that the battery has is going to depend on what the structure of the cells are. And you have a couple of different variations, and I'll throw a picture up here on the screen so everybody can kind of look. There is the two main types. The ones that we see the most often are cylindrical style cells and prismatic type cells. So prismatics are going to be your square boxy style.
Did you pull it up?
I am working on it. I don't know why I can't get it pulled up right this second, but
isn't there a battery that you said to avoid? It's labeled lithium, but it's got a big chance of catching on fire.
There's a few. I'll pull them up real quick so you can take a look at them.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm trying not to delay this. Anyways, let's see if I can get these pulled up here in just a second.
Okay.
The most common ones that we see, like I was saying, are the manganese and, or no, I'm sorry, the prismatic and the cylindrical cells. So the cylindrical cells are like those e-cigarette batteries, the rechargeable ones that are you can they look like a cylinder. That's the easiest way to describe them. And then your prismatic cells are going to be the ones that are kind of a boxy or square style. And there's really nothing wrong with either one. They each have their own purposes. But what I tell people when you're getting into looking at lithium batteries, if the manufacturer or the person that's selling you the battery is not willing to tell you what kind of cell they have inside of it, that's a big red flag. They should be willing to tell you what kind of cells are inside their batteries and where they get them from. Because one thing you need to know about lithium cells is they're all made in China. Every single one of them. Anybody tells you that they're made anywhere else is more than likely lying to you. I know there was talks about a factory in Africa, but as far as I know, there are no lithium manufacturers outside of China right now. So when the cells are manufactured, they go through a grading process, and you have grades depending on the manufacturer, but they get graded from A's all the way down to like an F or a D, depending on the manufacturer. So your grade A and like your grade A plus cells are going to be the ones that have the tightest tolerances. They handle their voltage the best. They maintain their voltage the best. They have the lowest internal resistance. There's a bunch of parameters that they go through and look and to grade these cells. When a cell gets graded as an A cell, they get lumped into a big pile. They usually get serialized and they get sold to your premium battery manufacturers. So the battery manufacturers will actually go out and buy big lots of cells based on which grade they want. Now, anything rated B and below, just think of it as like a giant dumpster. They throw them all into a big dumpster, and then anybody that wants to can buy that giant dumpster full of B or lower grade cells. And once you get to B grade and lower, you really don't have the ability to track them. Like, you don't know if you are getting B grade cells or C grade cells or D grade cells or a mix of them. You really have no idea. So your premium manufacturers are going, if they advertise that they use A grade cells, it should be able to tell you where they came from, which factory it came from, and what style of cell it is. Like, if you go to Powerhouse, they're going to tell you we use a prismatic cell from Eve. That's the factory that they use. They make some of the best cells in the world. Epic, same thing. They use prismatic cells from Eve. Newport, they use prismatic cells. I'm not 100% sure which factory that they use, but I do know that they use prismatic cells. There's a lot of different options when it comes to actually getting a cell. But when you start getting into the lower grade cells, you really don't know what you're buying. And most of those lower grade cells make it into your cheap Amazon batteries. So your no-name battery companies that just pop up here and there, and you see them going for $150, $200, $300. Those are usually your extremely low grade cell packages that they bought for dirt cheap, and they will put them out there on the market, sell them for a little while. Something bad happens, they get sued, or one of their batteries catches on fire. They pull the labels off the front of them and stick a new label on it and start a new company name and just keep on doing that. So one of the biggest things that I can ever advise people on is making sure that you're buying a quality lithium battery from the get-go, because you really don't know what you're buying when it comes to cell packs anymore, unless the company that you're buying from is telling you where they bought their cells from and where they were manufactured and all that kind of good information. Before I move on to the next part, Mike, do you have anything that you want to touch on as far as lithium cells go?
No, I just remember that you told me there was one out there. It's labeled lithium, but it's like Li-ion or
Yeah,
but
lithium ion.
it's not life PO4, but they could be light and very, very cheap, but those ones break down and have the biggest risk of catching on fire versus the life PO4 cells, which even if they go bad, there's a super low risk of them bursting into flames, which is why they're preferred. But the other one, I just forget what you told it was.
It's lithium, like a regular lithium ion battery.
Okay.
They're extremely dangerous. What's good about lithium ion is they're really good about delivering high energy voltages very, very quickly. So like they get put in a lot of like electric outboard style batteries because they're able to dump a bunch of power really, really fast. The problem with them is they are extremely subjective to thermal runaway, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But that is what causes the batteries to catch on fire.
Okay.
So the next big important part of a lithium battery that you really need to watch out for, and this is the one that is the least thought of, and that is going to be the BMS. BMS stands for Battery Management System. It is actually a miniature computer inside of the battery, and it controls everything that that battery does. It controls the charge rate, it controls the discharge rate, it controls the temperature of the battery, it controls when the battery shuts on and shuts off, when it goes to sleep, when it, anything and everything that has to do with that battery pack, the BMS controls it. You can have the best cells in the entire world, but if you have a crappy BMS that they didn't know what they were doing when they built it or has very poor components, you're literally risking the life of your battery and your boat on a crappy BMS. And that is where I see some really big failures. And like I was talking about earlier with thermal runaway, the BMS's responsibility, one of them, of the many things that it does, is to keep a temperature on every single one of the cells inside of the battery. If something happens and say there's a short and the BMS fails while there's a short, what can happen is one cell inside that pack. So you got a pack with a bunch of cells stacked on top of each other or sitting right next to each other. If one of those cells goes bad and you got a crappy BMS that can't handle it, what's going to happen is the BMS is not going to be able to stop that cell from continuing to discharge, and it's just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. The thing with lithium is it's not so much it's not flammable, but when it heats up, it starts to expand the cell with gases, and it starts to release very hot gases with no oxygen, which can be extremely flammable when exposed to oxygen. So that cell will actually start to swell up, and those gases inside can get to a point that they're so hot that the cell pack itself bursts. And when it does, it spreads those hot gases to the next cells that are sitting next to it. And then those cells start to get so hot that they burst and they start to go to the cells next to it. And what you get is a giant chain event of just cells bursting. And that's called thermal runaway. And there is nothing you can do to stop thermal runaway without a BMS that can handle it. So the BMS is what's going to cut the power going out or into that cell, whether you're charging or discharging that battery. And yeah, there's a comment in here. All BMSs are not created equal. That is 100% true. So when you're getting a battery, you're not only buying quality battery cells or crappy battery cells, you're also looking at the wiring. You're also looking at the BMS, which is the most important part. Another thing that the BMS does is controls your charge current and tells your charger when to shut off. So lithiums are not like your normal lead acid batteries, where a lead acid battery, you can just put it on a charger, and when it gets up to full charge, it will go into trickle mode, where it's just barely sending in a little bit of power all the time to just keep the battery topped up. Lithium doesn't work that way. If there's electricity going to it, that battery voltage is continuing to rise, and it never stops until the BMS shuts it off and tells it not to charge anymore. Another reason why the BMS is so important. And if you continue to let that charge level rise, it'll eventually get to a point to where it overheats the cell. You get cell expansion, gases released, and next thing you know, you've got thermal runaway and a giant fire.
Yeah, that was a big thing. I think quality of lithium batteries changed dramatically when a BMS was mandatory. Otherwise,
Mhm.
it was always that thing where people were paranoid about charging or overcharging the batteries. Like you had to be there next to your bass boat, and you couldn't leave the house. You had to have it on a timer and then go shut them off, or you risked the batteries either being ruined or lighting on fire. Yep, remember that early
Yeah,
days.
that is true. Um, and with chargers these days, they're starting to get to the point where they're so cheap, you almost have to be really, really careful of what you're buying. I see a lot of them advertised on Amazon that are nothing more than a lead acid charger, and they're depending on your BMS to actually shut the charger off or to stop the flow of electricity from the charger into the battery cells.
That's crazy.
Which, yeah, it's super dangerous,
Terrible.
because if your BMS fails, you're going to be just sending direct charge into that battery no matter what. With the lithium battery chargers that are like specifically designed for lithium batteries, most of them have some way to communicate with the BMS and tell the charger when to shut off. So you be really, really careful when you start looking at chargers that are made for lithium. Cheapest is not always the best when it comes to chargers. I have used some cheaper ones that seem to do well. Um, if you're on a budget and you're going to go the ultra cheap route and buy one from Amazon, look at a multi-chemistry battery charger. Even a
Yeah.
cheap one usually has the programming inside of it to know whether it's a lithium, a lead acid battery, an AGM, because they all charge differently.
Mm-hmm.
We got one comment on Instagram. Somebody said that y'all are making me second guess everything about my lithium. That's what we're here to do. We
So
want you to think hard about what you're spending your money on.
So here's the thing, guys. Like, on the reason we're doing this one is because we get approached a lot by customers, and they hit us up for battery choices or recommendations. We give them the recommendations and are like, why would I even buy this when I could just go get this one on Amazon for $178 or whatever it is? I'm like, and then my response to those people is a very, very blunt and unrelenting, you go and do that. You go right on ahead. And so, but the nicer version that we're going to give you here tonight is part of the bigger scam. So Chris has uncovered the internal of the battery, and you know what to look for and what to not to look for. So let's talk about some of the external factors of marketing for these batteries. So one of the bigger ones is like the warranty, the 5 to 10 year warranty. So just by default, ladies and gentlemen, and this is not just for lithium batteries, for any product, most companies do not last 5 to 10 years. Like, we were like one of the few, us. Most companies either get bought out by bigger companies or they die. All right. So, and you got to keep that in mind, because if you buy something and you're really banking on that 10-year warranty and you think that company's going to be around 10 years later when it fails, I would just say that that's not good. So if you're going to try and bank on that, look at companies that have actually been around for years. And those two would be Epic, Powerhouse, the two that we follow really deeply. There's a few others. And on Amazon, there's literally maybe nobody except for maybe Lifetime.
Yeah.
Lifetime might be the only one that is worth an actual crap on Amazon. All the other ones, you get what you pay for. Like, and maybe you don't even care about the warranty. I'm just saying if you do care.
Yeah. I personally don't have a problem with Lifetime batteries. I have taken one apart. They are made very well. The problem with them is they're so cheap that they have no dealer network here in the US that's willing to support the batteries, and which few you have generally have very poor customer service. So, and that's another thing that we're going to talk about later, is the customer service side of dealing with batteries. But we got approached by Lifetime about selling their batteries, and by the time that this is more on the business side than anything, but just so you know, by the time that we purchased the batteries, boxed them up, paid the hazmat shipping, and shipped them to a customer, there was literally nothing to be made from them. So why would we sell a battery that we can't keep the lights on with? I mean, that's the whole point of being in business, is to be able to pay the bills. And if we can't pay the bills with the products that we sell, is it really worth it? My other big problem with Lifetime is, I asked them specifically, I was like, are you going to offer like US based customer support, where if somebody has a battery issue and it's something that can be, repaired, can they take it somewhere? Or can you teach me, whatever it is that you want me to know about your batteries, and I offer it to people? And they just kind of like, were like, I don't know. We'll think about it and get back to you. And I never heard back from them. And I know why. It's because they're selling the crap out of their batteries on Amazon, because it's a well-known brand, but they've been around for a while. They're not bad. I'm actually testing a Lifetime in my boat right now. I wanted to, firsthand experience with it. So I'm trying it out to see what it's all about. And I did the same thing with Amazon batteries. I've purchased 5 different really cheap Amazon batteries over the last couple of years, and I tested them all out in my boat, and I had all of them fail. And I cut one open and showed it on YouTube what it looks like on the inside and why it failed.
Yeah.
100%.
So
go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, it's just a big thing. I know that they're out there and they're abundant. At least they have a BMS with Bluetooth. I would say the Bluetooth thing is a big must. Also, because the batteries don't trickle down over time, so you can't use a standard voltmeter with them, because it'll just read high, high, high until the BMS shuts it down with low voltage drop, and then you'll just be dead on the water. So if you don't have a BMS with Bluetooth that shows you that on a phone app, then you'll just never know the actual true state of the battery and how low it really is. And
Hmm.
so Lifetime's one of the only ones. Like that was the real big thing that Lifetime actually offered that in a battery for that cheap. But then some other ones have
You have to be
undercut them.
careful. They sell it without Bluetooth too, and
But they
the
do. I
prices
didn't
are
know
pretty
that.
similar, and you can forget to get the one with
Why would they
Bluetooth.
even do that? I don't know. Then there's some that undercut them by like $100, but those I would just really keep an eye on those. But yeah, that was a
Uh,
big thing.
we have one comment on here asking about the individual cell voltages on Lifetime. I know their older version of their app doesn't show individual cell voltages, but this is another component that I wanted to get into talking about. So the Bluetooth transmitter that's inside lithium batteries is usually connected to the Bluetooth. If it is an aftermarket Bluetooth, it's usually, when you get inside the battery, which most people will never do, but when I look at them, I can tell when the Bluetooth is built into the BMS and when it's an aftermarket part that's been added on. Generally, when you have separated Bluetooths, they don't always work with individual cell voltages, and they don't always give you as much information as an integrated Bluetooth chip that's actually inside the BMS itself. There, if you go on YouTube, or I'm sorry, on Google, and you do a search for alternative apps for Lifetime batteries, there is a bunch of other apps out there that use their Bluetooth feature that you can look at the individual cell voltages. I don't remember the name of them off the top of my head. I'd have to go through and look on my phone. I think I've got about 20 or 30 different BMS apps on my phone for looking at different people's batteries. When you go to look for a lithium, though, I think Bluetooth is probably one of the most important things that I look at. Not only the app portion, but what functions the Bluetooth has. Because without Bluetooth, you have no way of knowing what's going on with your lithium battery.
Nope.
It requires Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Unless you have some kind of cable port, like a data port, to where you can plug the battery into your computer. But who wants to drag their battery out of their boat, take it in the house, and hook it up to a computer just so they can see where their cell voltages are?
Yeah.
But the app and the Bluetooth function is what allows you check your charging voltage, check and see how many times the battery's been cycled. It allows you to see the serial number of the battery if there's ever a problem and you need it for warranty. It's where you're going to get your alarms at. It's going to show you your over temperature protection, your under temperature protection, your overcharge voltages, your undercharge voltages, your total pack voltages. There's a ton of information on there that you need, that you just can't get if you don't have a Bluetooth compatible lithium battery. And that's one of the things I see people make a huge mistake on when they buy Amazon lithiums, is they get on there and they see the cheap price, and it may even say Bluetooth on there. But if you don't actually go look at their app and see what their Bluetooth offers, you may be stuck with an app that doesn't really tell you a whole lot. I will tell you that the most common BMS system that we see in high-end batteries is JBD. And that's the same BMS that Epic, Powerhouse, high power batteries, they all use those JBD style BMSs. And I can actually pull up my Powerhouse app on my phone, and I can be in a room that has a ton of batteries in it, and I can tell you every single battery that uses a JBD style BMS that
You
I
pick
can.
them all up. Yep.
Yep, I can pick every single one of them up, and I can go in. I can look at all the parameters, where they're all set at. What their charging voltages are, what their undercharging voltages are, what their cutoff temperatures are, what their cutoff charging voltages are. There's a ton of stuff. So we do have a question real quick, using lithium as your starting battery. So
Over 75 horsepower, it's recommended.
with caution, make
Yeah.
sure that if you have a new motor, that your motor brand company, whether it's Suzuki, Yamaha, Tohatsu, or whatever, make sure that they will cover under warranty use of lithium batteries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Otherwise, yeah, it's got to be a newer 75 and above horse too.
yeah,
And then
and just
underneath
double check.
that, the stator just isn't strong enough to deal with the lithium's charge. And so that's where lead acid and AGM batteries are still king. And not a deep cycle either, like a cranking battery. You get a deep cycle and you put that there, you'll ruin it. So just either a lead acid or AGM cranking battery for your motor. And then we could talk about battery setups too. How many batteries you would in theory
we'll get into that.
need for a boat. We're getting to that a little bit soon, a little bit later. And some of the other things you guys got to think about for like quality batteries. Once you leave the Amazon battery spectrum, you start to run into actual other high quality features. Like if you're in cold areas, which I know a lot of you are, You got to think about heated cell technology. Um, I don't think there's any Amazon battery you'll buy that offers heated cell technology. It's also an IP60, IP55 or 65 rated casing, pretty low
They're usually
on the
60, 68 or higher,
on
except
the
for the
casing.
vent. Yeah, IP 67, 68 or higher is usually what they are, except for the vent. Usually the vent itself is not IP rated,
Okay.
but you have to have a vent on lithium batteries. That's what keeps them from exploding when they do get hot. So they're usually one way. They're almost like little reed valves. So when the heat goes in and the pressure builds up
Yeah.
inside the case, it opens a little bit and allows the pressure to escape and then closes back.
Well, 68 is the highest rating for IP rating, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So it's 67 is really good. 68 is optimal. I think a lot of the cases that I've seen are IP65.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, if water gets around it, it won't get in, but if it's submerged, it might take on water. Like,
You
so
have to be really careful with that because
yeah,
remember
so
how I
hopefully you
said
don't have like
earlier.
a catastrophic failure, like a spear wave, where you get caught in a rainstorm, or you went to sleep and you woke up and your boat's flooded from waves or something. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
think about those things. And what else is it? Yeah,
Well,
some
the
batteries.
the thing with the lithium itself, like it's not a problem that it gets wet. But you got to remember that when these cells heat up and they start building gases inside of them, the hydrogen gases and the lithium gases and stuff that's inside of them is extremely reactive with oxygen. Well, guess what's in water? Oxygen. And when you combine oxygen rich water with hot gases from lithium, it makes a giant fireball and it's very dangerous. So that's why I always tell people, it's one thing a lot of people don't think about is having a lithium fire extinguisher on your boat. A standard fire extinguisher, like the white ones that you buy at Walmart, everybody has in their boats, they will not put a lithium fire out. And in
Did we
some
ever start
cases,
selling
they will
them?
make them worse.
Yeah, you're
Do
right.
what?
Did we ever start selling them?
No, because of the hazmat shipping problems. It was going to be, it's just like I was saying earlier with Lifetime. By the time that we purchased the extinguishers and then shipped them out to people and paid the ridiculous UPS hazmat fee, it wasn't even worth selling anymore.
Guys, look for a lithium specific fire extinguisher. And I know none of you guys have on the boat because I don't even have one
I
on the
actually
boat.
have two on my
Well,
boat.
Chris might be the only person here in this live.
I have one in my office, I have one in the shop, and I have two in my boat. And then I have a regular fire extinguisher in my boat, only because I play with lithium every day at work. So I'm used to being around lithium, and I'm kind of overly cautious of what I'm doing. So I've seen a lithium battery fire in person. It's not fun. But you have to remember, you cannot put a lithium battery fire out with water or a standard extinguisher. If you dump water, and I've actually seen this happen. If you catch a lithium battery on fire and you try to throw it into the lake, it is going to go kaboom and make an even bigger explosion than you already had going for you. It's a little
So
scary.
make sure you throw it far away. Like grab it and just chuck it 30 feet.
I would
Get it
highly
off the
recommend
boat.
not touching it. I would just get out of the boat and
Just watch your boat burn while you sink in the middle of
I
the lake.
would.
I don't know, man. I might risk
I
grabbing
would.
that thing and throwing it. I don't know.
Lithium is
Grab it and
extremely
just chuck
volatile
it.
unless it becomes fire.
Chuck it. I don't know.
Ugh, I don't know. That's scary. That is
Pretty bad.
scary. We had a question about load testing lithiums. You don't need to load test the lithium because the whole thing with lead acid batteries is their quality degrades over time, which kind of segues into the next thing that I want to talk about. And that's why you do a load test on a lead acid battery. On a lithium, they're graded or advertised. And this is something that I wanted to cover as a cycle life. So you get, let's just say, for instance, like a 4,000 cycle lithium battery, which is pretty common, between 3,000 and 4,000 cycles. And that is completely charged to completely dead, and then completely charged back up 4,000 times. Well, a lot of people freak out when they see one that's only rated at like 2,800 cycle life because they're like, oh, well, this one's 3,000. Here's the thing: the way that they come out with that cycle life thing is they charge the battery up, they discharge it within a couple of seconds by putting like 100 amp load on it, and then recharge it back up in like 15 minutes, and then discharge it. They do that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. When you put a battery under that kind of stress, you're going to figure out what the cycle life is faster than what a normal person is. Now, you think about it, if you were to go fishing every single weekend, that's 52 weekends a year. Even if you went twice every single weekend and recharged your battery, that still puts you at only 104 cycles per year. You would have to fish every single weekend for what is that? A couple of, 20 or 30 years to even get half of the life cycle of the lithium battery.
Yeah,
So
it's
I don't
impossible to
pay
reach
much
that many
attention to
cycles.
those.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, you have to fish every day. Well, you fish every
Even
day.
then,
That's
that's still only
365 days,
365
3,
charges
6,
every
1,000.
single,
Yeah, I don't know. It would take you 3 years to even reach over 1,000 cycles.
which is
So,
usually between half and like a quarter of most lithium life
yeah,
cycles.
in order to reach the 5-year warranty, I don't really know. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I don't
don't worry
know.
about
That's
cycle life
pretty
too
serious
much.
amounts of runtime. That's
Another
pretty good.
question that we get a lot about lithium cycling and charging and all that stuff is the what you should store them at, and what you should discharge them to. I've been doing it for years. The whole 80% thing, what a lot of people like to use as the industry standard, and I'm saying that in air quotes, is to leave your batteries charged at 80% all the time. That's to maximize the cycle life. Well, if you already know, like I know right now, if I bought a quality lithium battery and I fished as much as I fish, which is probably 20 or 30 times a year, a battery is probably going to outlast me. So I'm not really worried about extending the cycle life. In reality, there's going to be some new technology that's cooler and better out before I ever reach the cycle life of my lithium battery. And it's going to make me want to go buy something else. So I don't
Yeah.
really worry about it. I charge mine to 100% and I leave them at 100%. And then I use them, like on my boat, I have a 100 amp hour lithium battery. I have two of them. I can usually go 2 or 3 fishing trips before I'm even down below 50% and I need to recharge the batteries. So this 80% thing, if you want to waste your time and get it at exactly 80% and get a few more cycles out of it in, 100 years, fine, go for it. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. But if you want real world advice and real world experience, I charge mine to 100% and I leave them at 100%.
Hmm.
Now, for you people that are up north or snowbirds or people that only use their boat a couple times a year, the number one killer of lithium batteries is leaving them sitting for too long. You have to charge them. I recommend putting a reminder in your calendar every month and just go stick them on a charger for 5 minutes, even if they're at like 98%. I would still go charge them up for just a little bit. Because what happens is the BMS is constantly reading the battery voltage, and it also has a countdown timer on it. As soon as you stop using it, whatever that BMS's countdown timer is when it's going to go into sleep mode. So for like some batteries, it's 60 days. So after 60 days, in order to protect the battery and keep it from draining itself down below its lowest voltage, what it's going to do is the BMS is going to shut itself, down into sleep mode. And a lot of times you can't get it to wake up with a standard charger. You actually have to hook the battery up to a charger, take another battery that's 12 volt or 24 volt or 36 volt, whatever your battery type is, and you run some jumper cables to it, and you have to put power to the charger and the battery at the same time to get the BMS to think that it's now awake. Once it sees that voltage and it allows the charger to start charging the battery, the BMS will wake up and it'll start acting like normal. I get that call probably 40 or 50 times a week during the spring. Is, hey, my battery's dead. And I have to teach them the little jump start trick. It's not difficult at all. But that's one thing you got to remember is like if you live up north and you get snow from November until March, that's 4 months that your battery is not going to be charged. You need to go out there and charge that battery at least every other month just to keep the BMS awake. Mike and I don't have that problem. We get to fish all year.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that happens to people. I swear some of these BMSs are pretty smart. Like they'll drain the battery down to a certain voltage and then just go to sleep, and then they wake up when power is put to them. I
Some
think
of them do.
a
Some of them don't.
lot of them don't have that. I mean, and a lot of them do.
Yeah. And a lot of it depends on the voltage too. If you let a battery sit, like say you forgot to charge it at the end of the season and it was sitting at like 20%, and then you just let it sit there for 4 or 5 months and then it gets down below its minimum cutoff voltage, you may be below that voltage for too long. You may not be able to get the BMS to wake back up. And in those kind of scenarios is when people have to ship me a battery, and it sounds like it's not true, but it really is. We will legitimately cut the battery open and charge the cells directly, which is kind of dangerous, but we do it in a controlled environment. We have to just charge the cells directly and then put the entire battery pack back into a new case. And it's kind of a pain in the butt. But, if you want to save lithium, that's about the only time. We did have a comment here that I wanted to address. Mine's plugged into a smart charger 100% of the time, and it's in the garage. A lot of people do this, and it is the dumbest thing you could ever do. Sorry, Garrett Falls.
Yeah, it'd be
I'm
nice
gonna
to
tell you why.
He's kind of a big name. I know you don't know who he is, but
I know,
Garrett,
but I'm gonna let you
he
know.
means it in a nice way, Garrett.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm gonna let you know that is one of the most dangerous things you could ever do with a lithium battery is leave it plugged up all the time. The only thing protecting that lithium battery from being overcharged when you're not there is that BMS. And if that BMS fails for any reason or anything bad happens and that thing starts taking a full charge because the BMS is not working, you got a fire on your hands. And if it's in your garage, when that fire happens, it's going to spread to the rest of your house. Most of the time when you see those videos of people's houses burned down with lithium, that's what happened. Is they had it plugged up to a charger 24/7. They weren't disconnecting it when it was done charging. Something happened with the BMS. The cells overheat. You get thermal runaway, and next thing you know, your garage is burned down and your house is burned down. Be very, very careful doing that. What I recommend people do, and what I do in our shop, is I charge a battery like overnight. Like if I get back from fishing late in the evening, I'll hook the charger up. The next morning, it's done charging. I unplug it, and I do not hook that charger back up until the battery needs to be charged again, or if I'm trying to, make sure that the BMS is stayed woken up. Never, ever, ever leave a lithium battery sitting on charge all the time. Extremely dangerous.
I know it's like something you guys had to do with lead acid and AGM, so you wouldn't see charge drop or whatever you call it. That thing was a mess in and of itself. I don't know. And there's a lot of these batteries where I swear I only charge them once a year. And that's not best practice, obviously, because Chris just said it's not best practice. But like for like my portable electric outboards, they don't get used for like a good part of the year, and then they get used a lot. But I swear I forget about that thing for months and come back and charge it, and it's fine. I don't know. So
some of them can handle it, some of them can't.
Yeah, I would say the higher the quality battery, the better for you. Just think about that. Think.
We got somebody asking where you buy a lithium fire extinguisher at. I bought all of mine off of Amazon, and so far I've had good luck with. I've got 4 of them. I've only had one that after about 2 years started to lose its charge. Like they got the little gauge on the side of them where it's like green, yellow, and red. I have one that's down in the red, and I've had it for 2 years, but I've never had to use it. Thank goodness. But Amazon usually is where I get them. You're gonna pay. They're not cheap. I think the last one I bought was like a 2-pack.
Like
the
$89.99 for 3.
Yeah.
Well, I have 3 boats for sure. Well, 2 of them that have lithium, and I'm gonna have to get. Yeah, one of them has lithiums. They're too heavy to just grab and throw out in the water. I'm gonna have to I got one boat that has like 4 giant lithiums. So yeah, that's just great. Look at all that. All right.
Well, Garrett said that he thinks the charger knows when it's full and cuts out on his own. That's true. It does. The problem with it is if the BMS fails, the charger has no way of knowing what the voltage of the battery is anymore because the BMS is what's responsible for sending the battery voltage to the charger. And if that BMS fails, it's going to allow electricity to go straight past the BMS into the cells, and that's when you get the potential fire. And not all of the chargers are built that way, and not all the BMSs are built that way. Some of them are designed to fail off to where when they fail, the circuits, none of the circuits are closed. They're all open so that no battery or so that no electricity can get to the battery cell. So it just depends on the particular BMS and how they're designed. So just be careful with it. If you want to do it, great. But I personally wouldn't. I've seen too many lithium fires. And with the amount and the popularity of lithium, they're pumping them out at an extremely high rate. I just question the quality control sometimes. I'm just very, very leery about it because of how dangerous it can be. Now, for most of the cases, you're not going to have any problems with lithium batteries as long as you buy something quality. And, they have a good customer support team, they have a good warranty. Most of the time, you're not going to have any issues. If you do, it's going to be something minor that's fixable. A programming issue with a BMS is fixable. A reference wire inside the pack that comes loose, that's fixable. Big things like welds breaking inside of the battery pack, or leaking electrolytes from the cells, or cells becoming dislodged and rubbing on each other, which can, cause friction, cause heat, and eventually cause a fire. That kind of stuff is what I worry about at night when it comes to lithium. All the rest of the stuff is usually very minor. I know one of the biggest complaints that I hear people, they're taking their first nosedive into lithium, they buy something and they get it and the battery's dead. That's like the easiest thing ever to fix, and people freak out about it and they get pissed off. You have to understand the way that when lithium is made, by the time the cells are made and then they're graded and then they're purchased by the company, you have no clue how long they sat in storage from the time that they were made, graded, and they actually make it to the company that's going to be manufacturing the battery itself. Then it goes through the manufacturing process, which takes, months, 2 months, 3 months, who knows? It just depends on the company and how they're using those cells. And then they're packaged and then they're waited to be shipped out to wherever they're going in the world. But like, let's just say they're coming to US America land. So you got a cell, let's just say it took a month to get, graded and then purchased by the company. And then it takes another month for the company to build the actual battery pack once they purchase the cell. Then it takes 3 months to get shipped here to the US. Well, you're already at 5 months since that battery got a charge. So yeah, it's expected that they would show up to your door dead. And then you add on top of that, by the time it gets to the distribution facility here in the US and then gets shipped to a dealer like us, and then it sits on our shelf for a few weeks up to a month before we sell it, you could be 6, 7, 8, 9 months before you actually got a battery from the last time it was charged. So it's something that you just need to kind of be aware of. And if you ever have a problem with a lithium battery and you get it brand new, the first thing you can do is hook it up to a charger, get you a 12-volt battery. It doesn't matter what 12-volt battery it is. It could be the 12-volt battery out of your truck. Hook some jumper cables to the battery on your truck, plug the charger into your lithium battery, and then just touch the cables to the top of your lithium battery. Red positive, black is negative. Touch them, and when you see the charger come on, that means that the BMS has been woken up and you're good to go, just like normal. So the other reason that I see batteries show up dead is they're usually damaged in shipping. We all know that UPS and FedEx like to play kickball with all of our packages, and they don't want to pick them up. They would rather sling them across the room or kick them off the back of the truck. When you have lots of impacts, the welds that hold the cell packs together can get microfractures in them, and some of them can even split. And when they get a lot of impacts over and over and over, you get a weld that breaks like that, the VMS will shut it off and won't allow you to use that battery because it's sensing that the battery pack voltage is below because one of the welds is broken. Another one that I see as far as damage goes with UPS and FedEx is reference wires. So every single cell in the pack has a positive and negative reference wire that runs back to the BMS, and that's what tells the BMS what the cell voltages are and what the temperatures are. And if one of those reference wires comes loose or gets damaged because they're getting jostled around while shipping, you can have a BMS shut down. And if you're working with a reputable company, they should be able to look at that on their Bluetooth app and say, oh yeah, you have a low cell here and a high cell here, but no cell in the middle. So more than likely it's a broken reference wire. They should send you out a new battery and take the old one back. And that's something that's repairable. Not really a big deal.
Yeah.
Let's see here. US made cells are pre-sold to EVs and power plants. Marine cells are still all imported. Yes, that is correct. That's why I said earlier in the video that, as far as we know right now, nobody's making US based cells here in the United States of America land for marine batteries. Most all of ours come from the old land of egg rolls. Let's see here. We'll go over a few of these questions. We'll start from the beginning.
Yeah.
We did have a guy asking, are we going to do any sandbar meetups this summer? We will try. I don't know how many of them I can make it to, but if you got one in particular that you want us to go to, shoot us a message and let us know, and we'll see if we can coordinate with it. I'm going to try to go to the Crab Island meetup this year in June if I can make it. And I would also like to go to Cato if I can. I don't know if I'm going to be able to or not. I don't remember the dates for Cato's. If anybody knows, let me know. But I would like to go out there and see that. So one of the questions we got was, why do prices vary so much with lithium batteries? Kind of everything that we talked about,
Yeah,
all
if you just
quality.
watch the live, but we're not going to go too in depth with that question. But just in long story short, quality matters tremendously,
Yeah,
and the amount of features given to each battery matters tremendously. And the higher you go up in cost, you generally see more features like heated cell technology, advanced Bluetooth readouts, an IP67 or IP68 rated casing, vents. Some of them even have ports that you can actually hook up a remote gauge to actually view your battery's level in real time. And there's a lot of other things going on. Some of them can be linked in tandem. Some of them have dip switches. If you're doing like big stuff, like big RVs or big boats, where you need massive power sources, it just goes.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Um, Joe Flo from YouTube said my cheap ones say grade A lithium iron phosphate prismatic cell. A lot of
sweet.
them do. You go watch the video that I did on YouTube where I tore apart a one that was advertised as a marine grade lithium iron phosphate, and it got water inside of it and failed. And I cut the battery open and I pulled the actual cell pack apart. And there was no lithium iron phosphate cells in there. There were lithium ion cells, which are the dangerous ones that go kaboom. Remember the old Mike? You probably saw it, but when the hoverboards, little skateboard, electric
Yeah.
skateboards, were just randomly blowing up on people, that was those kind of battery packs. So yeah, those batteries came out of my boat in a heartbeat. It all comes down to whether you believe what you're being advertised. If you got a reputable company that you're used to dealing with, or that you heard good things about, and you're willing to take a chance on it, I would call them and ask them, make sure they know what they're talking about before you buy a battery from them. You buy something off of Amazon, they can advertise whatever they want. The battery's sealed unless you're willing to cut it open, like I do, or I tell you a great resource. Um, Will Prouse from DIY Solar on YouTube. That's what he does. Is he gets cheap lithium batteries from Amazon. He cuts some jokers open to see what's on the inside of them, to see if they're lying about what it is that they're advertising. And he's got some very sophisticated testing equipment. So he does these huge load distribution tests, and he does a lot of cell voltage drops and all kind of crazy stuff. He's very, very into it. It's extremely technical. Great channel to watch if you want to learn more stuff about lithium batteries. But for us, mine is all personal experience from customer bringing me failed batteries and cutting them open and seeing what's on the inside. So it's all about what you trust and what you're being advertised. Let's see here. So I'm buying an 18-foot aluminum boat. Been planning to go with an AGM batteries over to lithium for my trolling motor.
You can do that. It's up
You
to
can.
you. I mean, I guess they're in theory safer.
A lot heavier.
So much heavier, and you're going to need more of them because if you got an 18-foot aluminum bass boat, I'm assuming you're going to run a 36-volt trolling motor. So you can get 3 giant AGM batteries in series to handle that power load, or you can get one 36-volt lithium battery pack that will perform just as well and not better and be a whole lot lighter and way easier to store because it's only one battery. It's roughly going to be the
Yeah.
size of a Group 29 or Group 31 AGM. So, I mean, and when it comes to like trolling motor batteries, it's like a no-brainer to get a battery pack. So, I mean, other bass boats were carrying 6 batteries on average. They were carrying 3 for the trolling motor, 1 for the house, another one specifically designated for the fish finders, and then 1 for the starter battery. So it was 6 batteries, and they reduced it down to 3. Or 4, right? 4.
Yeah.
Simply because they got rid of those 2 other batteries that had to run in series to meet 36 volts.
I'm starting to change my mind a little bit when I recommend people lithium setups for trolling motors and graphs and stuff. Used to, when lithiums first came out, even up until the last couple of years, I always recommend just get one big lithium battery for whatever voltage you need. So if you got a big trolling motor, get one 36-volt lithium. If you got a bunch of graphs and a live scope, get one 12-volt dedicated just for those graphs. Now I'm starting to change my mind a little bit, just because the potential for failure with lithium, there's no in between. They either work or they don't work. And when they don't work, there is no fixing it. With like an AGM battery or a lead acid battery, you may start out the day at 12, 9, 13 volts, and then something happens to one of the cells. It may go down to like 12, 11, 9. Well, you can still operate a graph at 11, 9. Lithium doesn't do that. It's either putting out power or it's not putting out power. So what I've started recommending people do is, instead of spending the money on one big lithium battery for each voltage that you need, get two smaller batteries for each voltage that you need. That way you always have a backup. So if you're going to run a 36 volt trolling motor, instead of buying a 36 100 amp hour battery, I would buy two 3660s or two 3640s. That way you got them running parallel. If anything ever happens to one of those batteries, you have a BMS go out, a reference wire break, a weld in a cell break, any of the many things that could happen to a lithium. One goes down, you can still keep running because you got a second one right there as a backup. You still wind up with the same amount of power and the same amount of amp hours, but you just got to split over two batteries kind of as a backup. The redundancy is something that I've been getting really big into lately. Same thing with 12 volt. You can put a power switch to switch from one 12 volt to the other. So if you got a 12 volt house battery and you got a 12 volt or a 16 volt battery for all your graphs, you can connect those two circuits with a battery switch and have your graph battery running and your house battery running. But if something happens to your graph battery, you could always switch it over and run off of your house battery so that you can still run your graphs throughout the day. And then another thing that we're getting a lot of people doing is they don't want to go to lithium starting batteries because the technology is still kind of new. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just new, and a lot of people haven't had a lot of experience with it.
The market has
People
not completely converted to it.
No, it's getting there, and I think it eventually will take a hold. But for right now, it's not. But companies like Powerhouse make something called like a run and gun charger. So what you do is you essentially hook it up to your lead acid starting battery. And when you crank your outboard up, it charges your lead acid battery. And once that battery reaches, depending on the brand, but like on Powerhouses is 80% capacity, it starts flowing that electricity out of your starting battery into the run and gun charger. And then the run and gun charger is a DC to DC converter. So it'll actually convert that electricity over to whatever voltage that you need it to be for your lithiums. So like, let's just say you have a 36 volt, Garmin Force on the front of your boat, and you have a lithium 36 volt battery. You can hook the run and gun charger in between your starting battery and that lithium battery. And while you're driving to your next fishing spot, you are actually charging your 36 volt battery. If you make a lot of runs like that, maybe one of those situations where you can actually get away with a smaller lithium battery and not have to spend as much money because you have an onboard charger that's constantly charging it whenever the motor is running. The only thing that you have to think about with the run and gun chargers is you have to have an outboard that can put out at least 40 amps worth of charging power. So that's going to be most of your motors over like 100 horsepower. Some 90s, I think, even do more than that.
That sounds like a lot of work. I would just honestly.
It's really not. It's 4 wires.
Yeah, I don't know. Rather than having 2 of each battery, I would just try and go with a high quality company like Powerhouse that has like a 2% failure rate across the board.
Less than 1.
Yeah, less than. Well, then I'd rather go with like a higher end company than have to carry 2 batteries just in case one fails. I don't know. It's kind of. I don't know. It's like I don't know how you guys feel about that. It's like
it's everybody has a different preference. I'm just throwing my advice out there because I don't like my fishing time is very valuable to me because I don't get to fish as much as I would like to.
Yeah.
And I try to avoid equipment failures as much as possible when I'm out there and not physically testing something. If I'm just out there fishing, I want to be able to enjoy fishing. And the last thing I want to have to do is worry about whether my one lithium battery is going to get me back to the boat ramp if my outboard were to fail. So that's why I run 2 lithium batteries in my boat. So I've always got a backup. It's one of those things. Like my mindset is I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
All right. Well, now you guys got that take. That's new to me. So it's good.
Yeah. A lot of the big rigging companies that do the big bass boats, they're starting to do that. Like I looking at Elite Sonar the other day. Most of their big, they do a big Phoenix or a Bass Cat or whatever. When they put a 36 volt system in, they're putting 2 36 volt 40 amp hour batteries in there. You still get 80 amp hours worth of charge or amp hours worth of
I mean, that's
power.
Good. I guess, running
at lower capacity.
Yeah, that's good. Makes sense.
And there's also converters too as well, which is another thing that you can look into. You can put on your battery switch, you can put a conversion in between any of your batteries. So like say you have a 36 volt battery and a 12 volt battery in your boat, and you don't want to get a second 36 volt battery, what you can do is run your 12 volt to a 36 volt converter, and you can have that hooked up to a battery switch to where if anything ever happens to your 36 volt battery, you flip that battery switch to turn that converter on, and now you're pulling your 12 volt power over to your 36 volt. Now you won't be able to run it at full amperage all the time. I think it's limited to about 50 amps is the most that you can pull but that's enough to at least get you back to the boat ramp if something happens to your 36-volt battery and your outboard just happens to be dead. And you can do the same thing in reverse. If you got like a 24-volt trolling motor battery and a 12-volt graph battery, and something happens to your 12-volt graph battery, you can put a converter in there that goes from 24 to 12, flip a switch if something happens to that 12-volt battery, and now your trolling motor battery is powering your graph battery. So that's just another way to have that extra redundancy.
Okay. Well, do we have any other questions?
I'm scrolling through right now.
Okay.
Yeah, here's somebody talking about the lithium batteries here in the U.S. So Tesla's got a lithium battery plant in Nevada. LG's got one in Michigan. They're the only ones operational in the U.S. So several others are scheduled to come online before 2030. I hope that happens because I'm ready to see what the U.S. technology can do for the lithium battery world. I think that as long as they stick with high-end manufacturers and good cell content, then we should have some really, really high-quality lithium manufacturers here in the U.S. I hope to see that sooner than later. At least there will be some more exacting standards, and you won't be kind of at the whim of the Chinese market to see what you actually get, because you really just don't know. Looking to pick up 200 amp hour batteries in the next week or so. What are some key things to run away from? What about chargers? Mike, you have any specifics on that? Anything you want to give advice on?
I mean, a 50 amp hour will last you if you're casually fishing. If you're trying to run all day hard, I would get 100 amp hour for lithium. I think most fish finders all day will last off a 60 amp hour, like 12 volt. Yeah, then I mean, for a trolling motor, I would just run 100 amp hour just to be safe. Unless you know you're going to be only out there for 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah,
I would run 100 amp hour, and then you can just we sell multi-chemistry chargers on our website. One's called the Dual Pro, Real Pro.
Mm-hmm. Dual Pro, yeah.
Yeah, charger, and it's like got green, and it's a multi-chemistry charger. It just knows. You hook it up to whatever bank it is, and it just knows what type of battery it is based on voltage, and so it just automatically knows what to do. So I would do it.
So my comment said find a 36-volt source to jump my 36-volt pack was fun. Yeah, if you can get 3 car batteries,
very, very hard to do. You're right, because you can find 12-volt sources all day, but to find another 36-volt to jump 36-volt battery pack, you better have a friend
with a 36-volt lithium.
Yeah, or you're screwed. I happen to have multiple 36-volt batteries, but I'm a unique case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of those situations where that's like why I recommend having 2 of the same battery. So that way you always got a backup just in case you need it.
Yep.
Another comment said there's all-in-one fires extinguishers from all fires incorporate lithium-ion battery. They're good. Do you think you need a lithium-ion gel extinguisher? I like having 2 different extinguishers on my boat, just for the simple fact of if I have a lithium fire, I know that my lithium battery is on fire, so I'm going to use a lithium extinguisher. And then for everything else, like gasoline fires, I've got an extinguisher for that. I've never personally used one of the all-in-ones. I wouldn't mind testing them out one day if some company wants to send me a bunch of them and I can light some stuff on fire and try it. I don't know how you feel about that, Mike. You think an all-in-one is safe?
I don't know. I'd rather have something that's specialized to be a master versus a jack of the trade. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
what those ones I just looked up on Amazon when you brought them up. They're not very big. You know, it's very doable to carry 2 of them and have one on hand.
So somebody's asking us the Bluetooth app stuff is really useful. I only use a few of the features when I'm actually using the batteries. There's a ton of features in these Bluetooth apps, and most of them, unless you're a developer or you're trying to diagnose a battery problem, you're not going to use. But the one that I use the most is just the SOC, which is the state of charge. And then there's usually a status indicator on there that'll tell you when the charger's hooked up and it's actually charging, or when it's in standby, or when it's being used. One thing I use the most is the amp draw on there. They'll give you live readouts of how many amps you're pulling. And I do that throughout the day, or especially when I'm fishing at night, when I've got a lot of lights on and I want to kind of keep an eye on my battery. I want to know how much it's drawing. So like, let's just say I've got my UV lights on to light up my catfishing poles, and then I got my red lights around the outside of the boat so that I can see, and then I got a couple of lights on in the cockpit so I can see down on the floor. I'll look at the app and see how many amps I'm pulling. If it's, 18 to 20 amps, I may turn one or two lights off just to kind of conserve battery power if I don't really need it. Kind of the same thing with low draws. I like to see, like if I just have my nav lights on, how many amps does that pull? Okay, well, it only pulls 1.2 amps. So I know that I can run my battery for 100 hours just on those nav lights and not have to worry about anything. Kind of tech nerd stuff, but that's what I like to do. That's the most useful features on the apps for me.
Yeah.
Any tips for buying used batteries and know if they are still good? If they have a Bluetooth, you can sometimes connect to the Bluetooth and go into the battery parameter section of the Bluetooth app and see how many times that battery's been cycled. That'll tell you how many charge cycles it's been through, and it'll let you know, if they've used it a lot or they haven't really used it at all. If you get a decent app, like the Powerhouse app or the Lithium app, you can actually see if there's any alarms or anything on the battery, if any alarms have been set off, whether that's like over temperature, over voltage, under voltage, undervolt charging and stuff like that.
Sweet.
HS Salvador is one of our school members, which I'm going to be hanging out with here in just a little bit over on our live school after party. If you're not familiar with our school program, we have a private community on our own platform specifically for people that want to gain boat knowledge, whether that's building your own boat, decking out an old John boat, making a V-hole into a awesome fishing machine, learning about lithium batteries, electrical wiring setups, turf, pretty much anything and everything boats we have on that platform. And it's a great opportunity for people to get on there that want to share their builds. They want other people's advice on their builds. And then we have classroom material as well, where you can actually go sit in and learn about some of the things that we do on a regular basis, whether that be boat building or building storage compartments and decks, how to install hatches and electrical components and batteries and all this stuff. But we also offer private live sessions with our school members. Ryan does one every other week called the Coaching Lab, where he will actually sit down and go over boat plans and look at people's boat builds in person or through video call and give them advice on what they need to do. And then every other week, I do a kind of Q&A live hangout session after our YouTube lives so that I can, answer any questions anybody has, give advice. It's a great opportunity for people to get some one-on-one consultation with us and get some personal attention to their actual boat build. Henrique was asking, I have a 20 amp charger on my boat just to give me more hours if needed. Just go with the outboard running. That's a great point. And another thing that I forgot to touch on earlier is when you buy a lithium battery, one of the things that I personally look for is the maximum charging capacity. So I have one electric outboard battery that will take up to 100 amps. So I can hook two 50 amp chargers up to it and charge it at a very, very fast rate. I have a new lithium battery that's a 12 volt that I'm testing out now on my boat that has a 75 amp charging capacity. So I bought a 50 amp charger, and when that battery is completely dead, I can charge it from dead to full in an hour and a half. It's pretty awesome. Just got to be careful, as with anything else, buy a quality charger. If you're going to go with a high amp charger, make sure that it has really thick cables on it. You don't want any stupid, 14 gauge cables. You want 8 or 6 gauge cables on it, and just watch it for heat, because the more amperage you pour into the battery to charge it faster, the more heat's going to build up. So you just want to make sure you're not going over the maximum charging temperature of that battery. Did you have something on that, Mike? I thought you looked like you were about to say something.
No, I'm multitasking because
multitasking.
you kind of know way more about this stuff than I do. I'm just here for moral support at this point in time.
Okay. I only got a couple more comments real quick, and then we're going to hop off of here and get onto our school hangout. Critical feature of the lithium chargers is they must measure the voltage to 1% or better accuracy. This can drift over the life of the charger. Yes, that is very true. I know that the Powerhouse chargers that we use, I have 3 of them in the shop that I use. I got one in my boat, and Ryan's got one in his boat. They are spec'd with a 0.1% accuracy. So they're down to the 10th, which I like. Makes me sleep a little bit better at night knowing that I got my batteries out there charging in my boat in the driveway, and I can look at the app at any time, and I know that I'm within a 10th of percentage on the voltage. So nothing bad's going to happen, hopefully. So, Mike, you have any closing words, thoughts, encouragement, anything that you want to go over, anything that we missed?
Yeah, guys, thank you very much for showing up here and checking all this out. I know it's like a lot to talk about, but really, lithium's kind of exploded pretty dramatically. I think they've reached market like critical mass way farther. I mean, way faster than most products. I thought it would be decades before they ever got this popular, but and I mean decades plural, but then it was like less than half of a decade, like 4 or 5 years when they really kind of came into prowess and everybody started getting them. And then are you just seeing everybody trying to undercut everybody in price? And I know all you guys are all about that price range, but in this specific product, I would ask you respectfully not to do that. I would really, I mean, it's something that can light your whole rig on fire. Okay, it's not just to get a little cheap light here or a cheap fish finder, and then if it takes a crap on it, oh well, you just get a new one. But these things go bad. I mean, you could lose your whole rig or your life or both. And so in this specific situation, I would tell you guys to really look at a quality lithium battery. You look at the prices and they make your stomach hurt. Well, I don't know. I would recommend honestly something like Powerhouse or Epic. Those are my personal two favorite. I know Chris favors Powerhouse. I favor Epic, but for different reasons.
And ProGuide.
Yeah.
And ProGuide, they make really good batteries
ProGuide,
too.
yes. We also like ProGuide. I actually have ProGuide lithium batteries in my personal best boat. Set of 3 of them. My bad. So yeah, those 3 we actually carry on the website for a reason. We don't carry anybody else.
As a business, we make the least money on lithium batteries. So when we
100%.
give you advice on lithium batteries and what to buy, it's not because we want to take your money. It's because I don't want a phone call from you in 6 months, a year, 2 years, pissed off because you spent a whole bunch of money on a lithium battery from us and it's not working now. And if you do have an issue, we want it to be easy to get your issue resolved. And that's one of the reasons that we've stuck with the companies that we have now for so long, is because they do have US based tech support. You don't have to pick up the phone and talk to somebody in Turkestan. You don't have to sit on hold for 14 hours. Their warranty policies are usually pretty easy to follow. And most of the batteries, at least some of the bigger ones, like I actually personally work on. So like if you get a 48-volt battery from us, most of the time, for most of the companies, when you call to get a warranty claim done or you need something fixed on it, I personally am going to be the one that is fixing your battery. That means a lot to me as a customer, knowing that I can actually physically look on the internet and see who the person is that's going to be working on my battery if there is a problem. I take a lot into consideration when it comes to customer service, when it comes to buying a battery, because you're going to spend, $400, $500, $600, $700 on a lithium battery. It's a big investment for a lot of people. It's a big investment for me. And I want to know that I'm going to be backed by whoever sold me that battery. And if there's a problem, they're going to take care of it. Or if it's out of warranty and I need parts for it or I need it repaired, that I have some place to go. So, I take everything with a grain of salt when it comes to advertising and stuff. And this is not an advertising skew to anybody else. I'm just telling you like it is. We sell the batteries that we sell, not because we make money. It's because we believe in them, we use them, and we work on them. If it wasn't for that, we'd be selling everybody's batteries. I'd be selling every lithium battery company that makes a lithium battery, just try to make $1 if that's what I really cared about. But we don't. We want people to be happy. So that's what we look for when it comes to lithium, and that's what means the most to us, and our customers mean a lot to us. So, anything else, Mike?
No, I actually got to get going.
Go for it, bud.
But hey, thank you guys so much for joining this live. I hope this was helpful to you. This is tremendously nerdy tech out stuff. You're never going to get this anywhere else. Well, you would, but I'm saying at least right now in this moment, the recent moment we gave it to you. Hey, thank you guys so much. I'm going to catch you guys later. I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate
you guys join Chris for the happy hour. All right, see you.
Yeah.
Right, bye.
So if I miss any questions or anybody has anything, you're watching this after the fact and you want some more information, you are welcome to jump on the comments on YouTube or on Facebook and leave those comments. I will check them over the next week and we'll get to them in the next live stream. We do one every Thursday night, usually around like 9:30ish, depends on what time I get the kids to bed and whenever Mike's available. Next week, we're going to have special guests on. We'll talk about that when it comes up. We're going to be talking catfishing and river boats, specifically shallow water boats. So it should be a pretty good one. And yeah, if you are able to make it, we will be heading over to school here just a second for our after program. That's SKOOL. That is our school program. If you go on the main page of our website, there is a link to the school platform, and it'll take you over there where you can sign up for an account and get in on our live tonight or any of the other Thursday night lives that we do. And then Ryan does his coaching labs on either Wednesdays or Thursdays in the afternoons. Sometimes we do them on Friday, just depending on people's schedules. But we hope to see you all there, and thank everyone for checking out the lab tonight.